Welcome back. Artificial intelligence is slowly but surely affecting almost every aspect of everyday life, from healthcare to education. One of the most notable uses of AI is with ChatGPT. The artificial intelligence chatbot developed by OpenAI was released last November, and it's rapidly making an impact in classrooms across America. Joining me to discuss the future of this technology and its effect on education is the editor of Future Perfect at Vox Media, Bryan Walsh. Bryan, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be here.
Now, can you tell me a little bit more about Vox's Future Perfect section and some of the themes that it explores?
Sure. Well, as the name suggests, we cover the future, and that means we look at really big, important emerging technologies, things like artificial intelligence, biotechnology. We kind of ask, what can we do? What can these technologies do to make the future a better place? But also, how do we avoid really bad things from happening? Because what's really interesting about with the ChatGPT or other kind of things we cover is that kind of go either way. It could make things a lot better, but it also comes with a lot of risks as well.
I think that's the most interesting part of talking about technology in the future is sometimes it has this really dark undertone where it could be dystopian, but then sometimes it could be, really, really great. And there's so many things that could arise from that. Now, saying that, I want to talk about ChatGPT. Can you explain what that is and how does it work?
Sure. It's a large language model, which means basically it's an algorithm or computer program that's been trained on just a gargantuan amount of text, like billions and billions and billions of words. And what it's able to do through deep neural nets that honestly I could not really explain to you, is it can sort of predict what words follow what words. It's trained in that way. And what that means is that you can speak to it essentially as you might a human being. It can kind of understand what you're saying, or at least understand in that kind of predictive way, and then write its own responses. And you can kind of direct it in any number of directions. It has a really deep base of information. So it's been very interesting to see how it's been actually used in education in the classroom, because it really can kind of write, it seems like, and it kind of read as well.
Now, I wanted to go into that. What is it typically used for?
Well, it's used for a lot of things. I mean, right now you're seeing it used for fun. You're seeing it used to create chatbots that you can speak to it for medical information, or you can do it for education, for instance. It's going to go into businesses. It can be used for customer service. I mean, there's really no shortage of uses for that. And we're just figuring this out as we go along. And it doesn't come with an instruction manual. We're kind of figuring out as we speak to it, as we use it.
Now, I like that you say that. It's because we have to learn, how to use this. And I think a lot of students are learning very quickly how they can use this stuff. Can you just talk about how teachers are incorporating this into their classrooms?
It kind of goes two ways. I mean, one way is that they're not incorporating the classroom because they can see this as something that can instantly produce decent or sometimes quite good essays, the kind of things you would be assigned in high school or in college on just about any topic. You give it a sentence prompt, which means just what you enter into the chatbot window on, say, I want to make a 1,000-word essay on, I don't know, the history of neurology, and it will do that, and it will look perfectly good. So obviously that's a little dangerous because it sounds like you could just get a shortcut that way. But a lot of teachers are also using it to kind of improve education, to personalize it, to speed process of giving grading or giving feedback to students. So, which way it's going to go is going to depend on what schools think, what teachers think about it, how they adapt to it. And we're kind of writing those rules right now.
Now, you mentioned shortcut, and I think that's very interesting. I feel like throughout history, we've had so many advances in technology. And I don't know if I've ever heard the term shortcut used before. I don't know if people thought calculators were a shortcut, or, just using a computer was a shortcut. But can you just talk about why some people are kind of viewing it this way?
Well, we actually have viewed those kind of technologies in that way before. I mean, I'm old enough that I learned times tables, 5 times 5 is 25 and so forth. Of course, calculators kind of took over all that. As they got more complicated, they could handle bigger and bigger equations. And people did have a real concern about that. Wait, are you supposed to learn math by doing it in your head? And then we understood that eventually, you can use these calculators and other technologies, ditto with laptop computers, Google for that matter, to process information better, and you can still be learning. So I think at this stage, we're figuring that out with ChatGPT. The difference is, we do some math, we do other things, but writing and speaking, that's basic to being a student, basic to being a human being. So if something can come in and do that, it's hard to not see it as a shortcut. At the same time, it's going to be embedded in how people go out in the workforce. It becomes something they actually have to learn, and that might be part of it as well.
Now, some fear that this technology could be used to replace teachers. First, I just want to get your thoughts on just the idea that, AI could be replacing a teacher.
There's so much anxiety about this with AI across the board. I mean, I'm someone who writes and edits writing for a living, and here's something that can just instantly write and edit. So it's a little worrying for that way. And yeah, I can understand that. I think what's more likely with teachers, given all the other things they do beyond this particular task, it can help them. It can probably accelerate their ability to handle more students, to get rid of a lot of the paperwork, busy work. I mean, that's a real area where just imagine like being able to get like report cards or just all the kind of stuff you have to do as a teacher. And then you can spend more time on teaching. But that said, like, I think we will see a lot of concerns about this. We'll see a lot of disruption. But at the end of the day, like, a teacher does things that no AI can do, no matter how sophisticated it becomes.
Right. And you talked about other professions that may be afraid of like, oh no, like this thing could come in.
Mhm.
I saw someone say like, oh, the writers strike, like, oh, just get the AI to like make a script for you. And I think there's something missing from a computer that, a human adds. Like, for example, like a teacher, there's certain things like the understanding or the compassion that an AI doesn't have. Can you just talk about maybe what you think about that in regards to just like what humans can offer that like AI can't?
I mean, I think they can offer, I mean, the ability to actually be in a place for one thing, but yeah, they can offer a creativity. They have a much deeper level of knowledge. And that's one of the weird things about these bots is that they both know a lot of things, but they also know nothing. They just know what predicts one thing. And that can only get you so far, I think. So when it comes to actually teaching, like being a mentor, no, an AI can't really do that. Can it be an assistant kind of? Can it help the teacher? Yeah, I think that's the case. And I think that will actually be an improvement, but we're going to really have to help teachers in classrooms figure out how do we integrate this in the best possible way.
Now, how does ChatGPT compare to ways we view technology in the past?
I think this is like a big leap forward. For one thing, this is just way more sophisticated than any kind of similar chatbot we've had in the past. I mean, we just, until last year, essentially, no one was really concerned about this being used in this kind of way. So it's just a leap forward. And again, I think it's because writing is so key to everything we do. I mean, students are writing all the time. We expect them to do that. We test it on them. And so the ability to do that, that's a big change. But, we've adjusted to other technological leaps beforehand with a lot of disruption, with a lot of pain sometimes in the short term. But I think on the other hand, we end up sort of becoming a little more capable, a little more widely experienced. And again, if you're going to use this in the future in the workplace, it helps actually understand it in the classroom as well.
Now, can you talk about maybe some cons of software like ChatGPT? I can say from my own experience growing up with calculators, I don't know if I would choose that now just because, math is not my best subject. And I like also people talk about like autocorrect and like how it's made them get a little bit lazy when it comes to like writing. So can you just talk a little bit, maybe some things that you noticed in your own experience and what could the cons be of like relying on something like this?
Well, the biggest con is that these models sometimes make things up. We call it hallucination. They just sort of invent facts. So that's a problem. If you're depending on it to be 100% sure and you don't know the subject yourself, you're going to get in trouble and people will notice that really quickly. And we haven't figured out how to change that really. So that's one thing. I think beyond that, you point out like with math, like how important is it to know how to write from the blank page on? Like I do worry a little bit that if this is how you learn to write, you're going to be missing something. That there's some process that takes place in your brain when you're actually writing that you won't be able to do if you're using this bot. That said, I don't know. I mean, maybe in the future I have a 5-year-old son. Actually, he's almost 6. He'll be upset if he hears me say that. If he learns to write this way, like, will he be different? Or will he just be ready for a very different kind of future than I was when I was a kid?
Now, I'm glad that you brought that up. And thank you for sharing that because I didn't think about how this could be affecting like younger audiences. I automatically just assumed that it's usually high schoolers and maybe college students. But, what could be, the outcome of introducing this to children who are maybe just learning how to read and write?
I don't think we really know, actually. I mean, like, it's hard to learn to write. Like I see, again, my son, like, he's starting, it's slow, it's a painful process. If there's a way to get around that and like you're just doing it as a native person with this technology, will you want to go it the hard way? That said, like, it's an experiment basically. So we don't really know. I think we'll have to look. And I do think it's important to learn to write. Like as a writer, I really do. But that's not easy for everyone. And so maybe in the same way that like this calculator help with math could do other things, this might be the same case with a lot of writing, but I think this will be a really important role in learning how to write as well.
Now, when is it appropriate to use ChatGPT and then when does it become cheating?
That's a fascinating question. I think it really depends on what the teacher says to a certain extent. Like some classrooms have banned this. So if you're doing that, I guess that's technically you're cheating. But I think there's also the question like, are you cheating the system or are you cheating yourself? Like if the point of education is to improve yourself, to learn things, if your use of ChatGPT is allowing you to like bypass that, then yeah, that's cheating. It might not be technically cheating, but you're cheating yourself. So I think that's kind of how we define it. And that's why we really do need, really clear guidelines in the classroom. How should these be used? Experimentation. And then if something goes wrong, we should change that and say, okay, we need to use this in a different way. That's really the key part to me.
Now, a lot of young school age children, high schoolers are using this. And I'll see online or social media all the time. They're like talking to it. Sometimes they're putting in your personal information
Mm.
if you're writing a personal essay. Is this technology safe to use? Does it store information? Or is that something that people should kind of be cautious or wary of?
I think we should definitely be cautious about that. Like, we're not really clear on what happens with the information that feeds into ChatGPT. It's not like personalizing you like advertising is. But if you're talking about personal things, that's a danger in the same way that kind of would be on anything online. So I'd be a little worried about that. And that's another area where, I hope the government at some point comes in and says, okay, we need specific rules about privacy, about other things that have to do with AI. Because right now it's kind of a bit of a wild west in terms of those kind of things.
And what can be done to ensure that students aren't abusing this technology, especially in regard to education?
I think the key thing here is for teachers to understand it themselves. So if the teachers are behind the students on this and the students are racing ahead, that does create a risk, I think. So helping them understand it. And then I think, figuring out rules, figuring out sort of experimentation with the best kind of ways to use it. That's, I think, the best way, like, we can assure that students are getting the most out of it, they're not getting cheated themselves, and that, education remains education, because this is going to change a lot. People talking about like it's going to end the essay, things like that. We'll need to figure out new ways to assess students, know what they're learning, and we just have to be aware of that.
Now, you wrote a book, End Time, so that's why I love that you said like end,
Mhm.
the idea of the essay. Can you just talk about, your book and how you explore themes of
Mhm.
advanced technology?
Yeah, so End Times is about all the different ways the world could end, both natural ones like a big asteroid coming out of the sky and destroying us all like the dinosaurs, or more so really like new technologies. So like say like synthetic biology, you can create really dangerous germs in the lab. Or with AI, there's a lot of worry, including by some of the same people making the AI, somewhat ironically, that as this becomes more and more intelligent, it could kind of decide to get rid of us, something Skynet, Terminator-esque. So, I do worry about that a little bit. I worry about other ends of the world a bit more. But I think it just shows like how big these changes are going to be, and how we do with them, how we deal with them. That's going to be enormously important for the future we have, assuming we have a future with this.
Right. And, I think it's so funny. This isn't the first time that we've explored this. There's so many shows
Mhm.
like Black Mirror
Oh, yeah.
where they talk about how technology could like kind of be dark. So I truly appreciate you just talking, with me about this and just the future of education. I know that technology has impacted the way that I learned. And I think about like if I went to college in the 90s, like, would I be able to make it? Because, it's
As I
really
did, by the way.
different.
Yeah.
It's very different. So I truly appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this. It was really interesting.
Thank you very much. It was great to be here.
To keep up with all of Vox Media stories, please go to their website at www.vox.com. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more open right after this.